even that was pretty insane. So joining us here up onto the show, Pawel Zygmunt here on the show. We finally got other hockey guy on the show, and I'm so happy that I did. But I want to start with this. So you and I are both hockey guys, and we love the Stanley Cup playoffs, and it's just been fantastic. So I want to start with this. So the Washington Capitals and the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes move on. My breakdown of this is I think Carolina was just so good at being a puck distributing team where they're going to move the puck around, find open spots, especially when you get Svechnikov and Sebastian Aho and several others on that offensive side. It's just going to be a lot for a team like Washington. What did you take away from that series? Because truthfully, I love both these coaches, Ashby, Rod Brindamore, but I just think Carolina really had a chip on their shoulder, and they're also on a mission as well as the other teams we'll talk about here in a second. But what did you think about this series as a whole?
Well, I appreciate you having me on the show, Jake. It's fun. I would say that I think Carolina played to its strengths. They're more of a move north-south team dynamic play. So they don't necessarily have a superstar on their team, and that's not to take away from some of the elite talent on that team. But what they know is how to put the puck in the net. They're also getting great goaltending, and their defense is probably very underrated. You look at someone like Jacob Slavin, who's one of the best two-way defensemen in the game. Like, he knows how to take the puck away. He rarely takes penalties, and he came up, and they know how to play the system. Now, credit to Spencer Carberry and the Washington Capitals. They trudged through. They had a great season, but I feel like age caught up to them. When you have someone like Ovechkin, who at 39, although he scored and beat Gretzky's record this year, he struggled a little bit in that season, and they shut him down, and rightfully so. He's having a hard time skating, right? John Carlson, great defenseman, Norris winner, but again, much older, closer to the end of his career, And so Carolina came out in droves. They have some young talent there, and so they were able to bring it about. You bring in Taylor Hall in that awkward Mikko Rantanen trade, and you sign him, and he's fit well in that system, even though he struggled with Chicago. So you have someone like that. You have these young guys like Jack Roslovic, who's coming in, and Logan Stankoven, who was part of that trade, and he's really fit into that system. He signs a big contract as soon as he gets there, and he's able to compete. And so credit where credit is due, but the Carolina Hurricanes know how to play hockey. And the biggest question every year they have is, where are the goals coming from? Well, now they have by committee. So that's what I've liked. But unfortunately, Washington, as great of a season as it was, it ended a bit shortly. So
yeah, and you know what? I completely agree with you there, because that's been the lingering question I've even asked about Carolina with that. But now, because they figured that out, it's now being a lot more simplified. And now going into the Eastern Conference Final, depending on how tonight goes, because we'll get into that as well, because again, I just think Carolina, from top to bottom on the roster, they have the pieces, because they're always seeming to make big moves. They're always seeming to get some core players. But I think this group really is interesting to watch, because we've been asking of, when will they ever get over that hump? And I think that's where Rod Brindamore really, really shows that type of adversity. So, okay. So we know that Toronto and Florida are playing right at this moment. Okay, last game, I did not like the effort from Toronto. And look, I thought it was completely embarrassing. But this is the thing, is Toronto, and last week I said on my show, I don't think I've ever said here that is the best looking Toronto team I've ever seen in quite some time. But because of that effort is the reason they make me question every year with this team. So they have to rebound here, Pawel, because if they lose this game against Florida, it just goes to show you, and I love both coaches, Craig Berube and Paul Maurice, but I think Paul has more of that upper hand because of the camaraderie he has with Florida. I mean, does Toronto get it done, or does it kind of seem like that last game showed the cards that they're folding?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because they fought so hard this season for home ice advantage, which they got. They came in. There was some questions when they played Ottawa in, I believe it was game 4 or 5, and they looked a little shaky. Also, a similar kind of letdown, but they got it done. I mean, I never thought that they couldn't. But you're going up against the former defending Stanley Cup champions. What's it called? The Florida Panthers. And
Yep.
when you look at their third line, where you have Brad Marchand, who came over from Boston, and you know he's a pest. You know Kachuk is a pest, although he's not 100%. That team will wear you down, and that's what you need. You also had Bobrovsky kind of reeling. He kind of started slow, had a hard time, and now he gets into it. He's found his groove. He's really good. And so you got this team playing on all full cylinders. They're all competing. And Toronto, it starts with the top guys. And as much as it pains me to say, you got to have Matthews, who's your new captain this year, and Mitch Marner, who can be a 100-point player in the regular season, compete. But that backhand turnaround pass, whatever that was a you don't do that in the playoffs in the second round. You do that against the team in the bottom, like the San Jose Sharks. Sure, whatever. You do that maybe at the All-Star game. That's not where you do it. And I get it. He's a smaller guy. But I can name you several smaller guys in the league right now who compete. We were just talking about Carolina Hurricanes. Logan Stankoven, he's not a big guy, but he competes. He's not afraid to get hit. And when you have something like that, you need to be ready for games. I like Craig Berube. He looked shocked after the last game. Joseph Woll has done what he could. Of course, the Stolarz injury really did hurt their chances, but I believe in Woll. I think he still can play well. And, on their back end, you've got some big boys. Chris Tanev, he is the block expert. He can do whatever. You've got Jake McCabe, who is a physical presence, right? And Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who played last year for the Panthers, he's come in. He's been snarly. And for his price tag, he's great. But if Toronto doesn't have the top guys going, and I'm excluding Marner or Nylander from this because he has performed, then you're struggling because the rest of the lineup, what are you expecting from your Scott Laughtons on your third line, right? And potentially David Camps if he's playing center on the fourth line. That's what you need your guys to do. You need to have a good start. You need to put pucks on net. And maybe Matthews is still dealing with that injury from during the season where he went to Germany to get some tests done. But right now, it's a winner, a dire must, right? This is their season on the line. I hope we do it. We get more hockey. Toronto fans can have another heyday of we did it, we're in it. The narrative shifts. And then game 7 would be on Sunday, which is a story in itself, as we know that one of the best marriages in sports is Toronto Maple Leafs in game 7. So
yeah, right. Oh man, wouldn't that be quite a matchup? But no, I agree with you there. I've thought, because I watched those highlights of just their top 3 guys, they looked lost. It was just, what in the hell was going on? I was just shocked by it because, again, this is part of the reason Berube took the job, is because it was trying to get all of his ducks in a row and trying to keep him consistent. So we'll see. I mean, I'm pulling for him, but I would not be surprised if, Florida, they come out with a fast one and it's too much for Toronto to bear. So I know tomorrow night it's going to be fun. Winnipeg and Dallas. Dallas is playing with a chip on their shoulder, much as Winnipeg is, because Winnipeg last year, what I am actually happy that they overcame was because last year was by far the most horrible performance I've ever seen. I mean, 24 goals given up in the first round. That's unacceptable. And even for a Vezina Trophy winner like Connor Hellebuyck. But now you've got Dallas, who the question mark is all surrounding Pete DeBoer. And I like Pete. I know he brings that defensive identity, but tomorrow night is going to be a show. And I think because of the Jets really fighting physically in that game, this is winner take all at this point. Who do you truthfully see in this survival game? Do you see them making into the Western Conference?
I see Dallas. I had Dallas. They were originally my cup pick at the beginning of the year, just because of how deep they were up and down the bottom of the lineup. Also, I mean, they had to face Colorado in the first round. That's no easy feat. Hey, you're one of the best in the Central. Here's your competition, the Colorado Avalanche. So although they weren't first in the Central, that's not exactly a prize position you want to face. So I like Dallas. The problem with Winnipeg, I think, is they stink on the road. For some reason, they've had a hard time winning on the road. And at home, they're great. They looked great last night. They dominated. They were getting pucks out. They were killing penalties. They were being physical. Questionable call by Ben, who got a fine today for $5,000. I don't know why. It was a bit of a goony play. But I have Dallas because Mikko Rantanen has shown that right now he is the Conn Smythe favorite, the best valuable player in the NHL in the first 2 rounds so far. Now it's across, the whole playoffs, but you're looking at him. He had back-to-back hat tricks. Then you have, Mikael Granlund, who comes over in a trade from San Jose, also scores a hat trick, even though Rantanen had his own chances. And it shows like he's really taken his team on his shoulders and really been able to elevate his game, and people talked about how he fed off McKinnon, that dynamic that they had in Colorado, but he's really found his footing. He's a big guy. It's hard to get the puck off him, and he knows how to make certain passes that you're in awe when you watch it. So that's where I have that series. Although if Winnipeg is going to win, they got to play like they do at home. That's the only way they take this to Game 7, and they do have home ice advantage. So Game 7, it's not written in stone, but you write your own story.
100%. So I know you were excited about it. With now the Edmonton Oilers going back to the Western Conference Final for the second straight year. Look, and me being, a Vegas native, I've always, lived and breathed Golden Knights. But I've said this on the show yesterday, is I'm not worried about this team at all for several reasons, because number one, they have the coach, they have the culture, and they are also known for, when they lose something like that, they're going to want an acquisition in the offseason that's going to help to boost them up over the top. So this team's not going away for a long time. But I will say this. I felt like, and I thought this was kind of a perfect thing, and correct me on this, but Connor McDavid, he's arguably one of the best players I've ever seen just skate on the ice. He does everything right. And to me, I've always said this, that with McDavid's walk is similarly when it comes to Wayne Gretzky and even Michael Jordan, because these guys came into the league very impactful, but who did the Oilers have to deal with? The New York Islanders, who won 4 straight Stanley Cups, and then even with MJ, he had to deal with the Detroit Bad Boys and the Pistons. So to me, McDavid had to deal with a lot of shares of adversity for a long time. But Pawel, I have never seen a more patient, a more in control, and probably a more impactful Edmonton Oilers team. And I think this is the stuff Connor McDavid has been harping about for a long time. Do you believe this looks like and seems like McDavid might actually fill that final spot in his trophy case?
I hope so. Nothing is ever guaranteed. And unlike other sports where oftentimes, like a Michael Jordan, can take over the game and really make an impact, I think it's a little harder in hockey, given that it is such a team dynamic sport and you live and die by, everyone. And if anything, the closest position that you can compare it to is the goalie, because, if your goalie goes down and you have poor goaltending, well, you live and die by that sword. This is possibly their opportunity. They had the experience. They've gone on a couple of deep runs, including last year, losing by 1 goal. But of course, Florida outbeat them because they have more depth, and they did last year, right? And that scoring kind of dried up in that last game. I do hope that McDavid gets a Cups, because I don't want to say he deserves it, but he is that impactful in the game, and he's beaten everything else. And I think he has a chance to do it because of how well the team is playing. Now, anything can happen, a bad bounce here, an injury there, and all of a sudden you're looking at the barrel of your series ending, and then you're done, and then you got to wait another full calendar year before you get back to it. But if they continue to play the same complete game that they did last game, or second last game, I believe it was Game 4, where they won 3-0 versus Vegas, then I think they have a chance to go to the promised land. Now, I would compare it, if people know basketball terms, to Dirk Nowitzki when he ran his championship and what he had to go through, all the adversity.
Yeah.
And nobody believed that he can do it, right? Now we know he's a Hall of Famer for sure. But Dirk, nobody expected him to go through all those teams, including Miami, I believe it was, and just dominate the way he did. And so that's the way I see it. He has an opportunity to make a legacy for himself this year. That being said, there's always a team on the other side doing the exact same thing. And his name is Mikko Rantanen. He's going to try to do the same if the Dallas Stars move ahead. If it's not them and it's Winnipeg, it's going to be Connor McDavid trying to cement his legacy as one of the best goalies ever, including being the best American goalkeeper in the NHL.
Man, I'm excited for, the conference finals because, once you get right there closer to the finish line, because I said it on the show, like the hardest trophy in America is to winning the Stanley Cup because you're getting beaten, you're getting battered. And at the same time, it's well worth taking the scars and drinking out of the cup. That's really what it comes down to. But I love that Dirk Nowitzki analogy. I like that. So what's interesting about this? So the draft lottery, in my opinion, and I live here up in Colorado, and all we have is the Colorado lottery, right? It's a whole scratch ticket. This is what I feel like the NHL and the NBA draft lottery is a scratch ticket because you have your probability numbers where you think those teams have the higher odds, but that's not going to matter. So 0.3% that the New York Islanders get the number 1 overall pick is just unheard of. But then you look at what just happened in the NBA. You traded away Luka to the LA, and now Dallas, this is probably the 4th, 5th time in 15 years in the NBA that they get it, and everybody's like, oh, it's rigged. It's all the – but that's a scratch ticket. These probabilities don't matter until you actually see what happens. So what were your thoughts on the NHL draft lottery? Because to me, what I expect in the offseason, and I'm not sure if you feel the same, but I expect the Islanders to get busy this offseason. And I'm feeling like there's going to be some trade moves. To be honest with you, I thought JJ Padgett would have worked. It's not. I think you honestly move off that. I think, too, you make a couple of other moves. You already did one with Brock Nelson. Now what are you going to do about Bo Horvat and some of these others? You already moved off some of the core pieces. I just think they're going to be the busiest team up on the moves because they got a new GM. You're trying to build everything around with Patrick Wall to make this work. What did you think about that lottery?
For sure. So I did like that they won because it goes to show you that depending on where you finish, you still have an opportunity to go number 1, right? So moving for next year, if you're a team that's looking at getting generational potential talent, Gavin McKenna, who we've talked about quite often, teams may not do so well in the season and maybe hold on to their first round pick. Now, the Islanders have had first round picks in the past. Their GM search is still ongoing technically. So whoever's going to take that job in, it's going to be very lucrative because you've got some business to attend to. Plus, you get to pick someone like a Matthew Schaefer or a Michael Misa who has been good. But you also have someone named James Higgins, who is from the Long Island area. Now, he's not touted as number 1. But do you go for a homegrown guy? Because that's sometimes something you see, right? You look at Mitch Marner with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And so if you go down enough, social media, Reddit, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, you'll definitely find conspiracy theorists about, this is rigged, this is not rigged. Fair enough. I'm sure there's some questionable things. And the only one that I heard is because the Islanders were going to get the All-Star game next year, right? In Long Island. But of course, the Olympics are happening. So, long and behold, they get the first round pick. It's not hard to connect those two dots. It's going to be not the deepest draft, but a pretty solid draft with depth players. You don't have a clear number 1 generational talent like a McDavid, like a Austin Matthews who's come through, but someone who's going to make an impact right away. And so I think the job is going to be a lot because the Islanders aren't that far off from making the playoffs, and their biggest concern is goal scoring. What's the biggest thing you want to pay for? You need goal scoring. So who are you going to go for? And when you look at someone like a Misa or a Matthew Schaefer, they know how to put, more so Misa knows how to put up goals. He had 62 in 65 games. That's pretty impressive, right? They struggled this year with Anthony Duclair, who took some time off for personal health reasons. You got to re-sign your RFA Noah Dobson, who's out there, and he's going to be able to, he's going to be able to be traded because he's definitely going to bring you some value. Again, it's what is the direction of your team? And I know that Ken Holland, who's now out in LA, he interviewed for the job, But the way that talks have been happening, and from our sources for two guys have been, is that it's more of a longer tiered deal. So they want to build up a little bit more of their capital, their draft assets, and their prospect pool, and then go in so that they're competitive for a longer time in the next 2 to 4 years, right? Rather than be immediately good. Now, it can always change and things can improve in one season, of course. But I think that's kind of the mentality that the Islanders are bringing out. But that's the thing with the draft, it brings excitement and buzz. And if people recall, John Tavares was the last guy who was number one and picked by the Long Island. You also may know this guy named Rick DiPietro, this allegedly legendary goaltender who no longer is in the NHL, but his contract still goes, I believe, till 2029, 2030. So he's still getting paid like an elite goaltender, but he's not playing at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. When I look at this draft, it almost reminds me of the time when Matty Beniers first came in. It kind of reminds me of that draft because we knew what he was. I mean, he's a very good elite goal scorer when you get him going. And that's why Seattle, them drafting him, I think was the perfect fit because now you got your elite scorer for the future. So that's why I feel like this kind of draft is, because last year it seemed like it was more roster constructed than anything else because you needed some important pieces to fill in. But two fiery questions to get here before letting you go. So, all right, we got hockey in Utah officially, and now we got a name, the Utah Mammoth. Living here in Colorado, and I'm very surprised that we haven't had a team in Utah from the jump because I feel like they have similar climates to Colorado. I mean, it snows, it's beautiful weather. I've camped out there down up in Cedar City, St. George area, and I love every moment of it. I mean, but I love the fact that they are built for success because of the ownership that they are owned by. I mean, the way they've treated the Jazz, they love their fan base. They make it reasonable. So, what should we expect from the Utah Mammoth now? I mean, when I saw the name and the colors, man, it's hard to compete with that.
100%. So they've released their jerseys. It looks great. I was always a fan, as I've talked on the show, of Utah Outlaws. I thought that was a pretty cool name. Of course, Yeti didn't pan out because of another corporation that owned that name and didn't want to share the rights. Rightfully so. The legality. Don't ask me. I'm not a lawyer. I just look like one. But essentially, the team has been successful. They did miss the mark this year in the playoffs, but I feel like they can be competitive. I know Ryan Smith wants to be competitive. They are improving the arena because there were some areas that were a little bit limited in terms of views and where you're sitting, because of course it is an NBA league and they are planning to build NHL hockey rink there. The work essentially has been started on that. There's boots on the ground. Yep. The team is exciting. They did some great business last year, bringing in Sergachev from the Tampa Bay Lightning, who apparently has a side. It's a fun little story that he has a bit of a chicken farm, and so during a bit of a shortage of eggs in the U.S., he ended up giving a lot of eggs to a lot of his teammates. Because they're like, "Oh, you need eggs? I bring you eggs." So very Russian of him. Yeah. So that was a pretty cool story. But I like what they're doing. They're going to have some cool designs with their jerseys. It'll be interesting to see what their alternative will be, if they'll have any kind of nod, not only to Salt Lake or the Jazz or even the old Arizona team, because of course that team still technically exists, but maybe they're going to acknowledge their kind of quote unquote history. And they should compete for a playoff spot next year for sure. They have that goal, and don't be surprised if they make a push for Mitch Marner, if not another big forward like a Sam Bennett, because they're going to want scoring and they want to go deep next year and make the postseason. Because I can imagine how excited Utah fans would be with the team in the postseason next season.
Oh, 100%. So, all right. So we got new coaches now in different places. So Adam Foote, we got in Vancouver. I actually kind of low-key like that move because I felt like Vancouver, sadly, had a drop-off year. And, because this team, I mean, they came into the playoffs. It seemed like they were going to honestly be the hot team going in. But after that, they kind of blew themselves out of the water. And then finally, Philadelphia, they get Rick Tocchet. I'm curious how that's going to look like because knowing Philadelphia, you can't underachieve. And if you do, you're going to be talked about an awful lot and not nicely either if you're outside of the Eagles. But then there's a hiring I absolutely love, and I'm sure you do too. Mike Sullivan to New York.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. When Peter Laviolette got hired, I was like, this roster is going to dismantle. And the only reason of it is because, look, I like Gerard Gallant. I think he was a very hyper-aggressive scoring coach. I also do think that he possesses that. But the problem is, it's the puck and go situation. That can't, you can't go in there with a really good defense and keep doing this puck and go situation. Now you've left your goaltending vulnerable. I think that was the one knock on him. But Laviolette, it just seems like he does not kind of bring that oomph with offense. I saw this with Nashville. So Mike Sullivan, though, with this roster build, I think could be potentially, if everything falls into place, this could be a cup contending team.
I agree. I was surprised that the Rangers failed as they did because their season was a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
And again, they have one of the best goalies in the world, Shesterkin. He knows how to play. He signs that big contract. So hopefully that stress is gone there. You have Artemi Panarin coming up at the end of his contract. He's got one more year left, and he fell kind of into their laps. So, you take that chance and you are competitive. Your older guys are, not going to continue to play younger. So you look at a Chris Kreider, who isn't as effective as he was previously, and he has been a good power play specialist there. But you look at someone like Alex Lafreniere, who was a number one pick a couple of years ago, and he's really found his game, and you really want him to be successful. Now, they did trade away for JT Miller and moved Philip Hedl. Philip Hedl, I mean, I like him as a player. The problem is he's had too many concussions. I don't know how much longer he's going to stick around in the league, given that history. He struggled even staying in the lineup for Vancouver. But this should be a playoff roster. Now, they could tweak around it here and there, but you really need to figure things out. The other person that I would mention, who, of course, it was fun to talk about, but Matt Rempe really needs to take a step back because we know someone, Alex Tomics, who's a play-by-play for the farm team there. And he talked about how Rempe can play. He can skate. He can be physical. You put the puck in the net. But the problem is this goon antics. I get that that's one of the reasons he stayed up so long. But there's more to that game, right? And so you need to be able to compete. And so I like the hire of Mike Sullivan. I know that he has some family. I believe it's his daughter in the region, which is one of the reasons why he picked it there. And how could you not want a coach that continually coached Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang, but also kept that team competitive when they should have faltered a while back, right? And needed to rebuild probably 3 to 4 years ago. They're just a little bit behind schedule. So I like the hiring. I like Adam Foote. You're always going to find people, it's a new guy. He has no experience. Well, do you want to recycle another coach? Do you want to bring in Peter Laviolette there in Vancouver? I don't think that'd be a good fit, and you want someone who's excited as well as is calm. When Adam Foote is very calm. He had a great career, including when he won with the Colorado Avalanche in 96 and 2001, but he knows how to play the game, and Quinn Hughes is a fan. And right now the Vancouver fan base needs to make that man happy because, of course, Rutherford's coming. We're a little bit odd saying, he's going to bring the brothers over, which sounded borderline tampering. Yeah. But essentially what it comes down to is you want to make Quinn Hughes and the rest of the guys happy. You bring in somebody to give him an opportunity. And you know why? Because you look at Edmonton when you bring in Chris Knobloch from the Hartford Wolfpack, as we talked about a little bit earlier, and look at the success he's had with Edmonton, right? So you never know what you're going to get. And you got to give guys a chance. So that's what I like. As for Rick Tocchet, I've had some conversations with some fans in Philadelphia. He's not going to be that much different from Torts. He just doesn't yell as much. That's probably the only thing, right? And I know he was really loved, or people really love Brad Shaw there, the interim coach. But essentially, I think they're looking for a homegrown guy who played for that team, really knows how to compete. My question with Philadelphia is are you really going to push over the edge? Because I think they're still kind of on the outside looking in. I still think they have a year or two away before they're competitive in the playoffs. I don't see Philadelphia making the postseason next year.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to take a little bit of time because, if it wasn't for, this Carter Hart thing and then a couple of other players that they did not end up getting and addressing, I mean, it's still going to take them a little bit of time, but I'm really hoping, because if we get teams like the Flyers that get into the playoffs, it makes hockey interesting and it makes sports interesting. And, we'll be talking about it for the next several weeks. So yeah, I'm excited for next season, but I do love these coaching hires. I think Adam Foote, you hit it on the nail. I think he's very calm, and I really love to see what Vancouver, how they bounce back and how they really look like.
Now, if I could quickly ask you, if
Yeah.
someone were to put a metaphorical gun to your head, who is your Stanley Cup final prediction right now with the teams that are left?
Oh my God. A low key, I think I would probably go Dallas and Carolina, only because it just seems to me Mikko Rantanen, the book is perfect, because you just proved to Colorado. Oh my God, I can't stand these Denver, sports guys, because they're freaking out over that whole trade. I told him, I said, take a deep breath. The best thing that happened is he didn't sign a contract extension with Carolina. So he gets traded there. They signed him to this premium deal. But think about it. You just beat Colorado. You got the last laugh. Why wouldn't you want to beat Carolina in the big stage and get the last laugh there? That's an interesting one. But if I wanted an honorable mention, I really hope Edmonton does make it, only because I just have that soft spot for Connor McDavid. I really do. But yeah. But no, it's so good to have you up onto the show, Pawel. Love your guys' work there up on Two Guys in Hockey Talk. And I know you guys have been amped up all season long, and I've seen all the clips. You guys are doing an amazing job from there. Appreciate you for coming on by, man. Enjoy tonight and enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we shall see what the conference finals are literally going to shape like. Take care of yourself, my friend.
Thank you. Cheers. Have a great
Cheers.
night.
You too.